You are folding your last shirt, zipping up your carry-on, feeling ready for your flight in 2026. But inside that same bag, you might already be carrying 8 items that TSA agents are trained to pull the moment they see them on the screen. Not because you are doing anything wrong, not because you are careless, but because these 8 items now trigger automatic red flags, no matter how neatly you packed them, no matter how many times you have flown before, no matter how harmless the item feels to you. Personally, today, we are going through every single one of them, one at a time. The small mistakes that stop travelers at the checkpoint, the sealed items that still get confiscated, the tricks people think are safe that are actually the fastest way to get flagged, and the tiny details that quietly decide whether you make your flight or lose your bag to a search that eats up the last 20 minutes before boarding. Stay with us until the end, because the very last item on this list is the one that even experienced travelers still get wrong over and over again. Before we get into it, if you want real travel safety updates like this, delivered before the airlines and the airports even bother to explain them clearly, tap subscribe now on Fly Smart After 70 so you never walk into a checkpoint unprepared again. This channel exists so you find out about rules like these from us, not from a TSA officer holding your belongings at the counter. Now, let us start with the item that catches even the most organized travelers off guard. Number 1. Medications in weekly pill organizers. You have used the same routine for years. A weekly pill organizer, Monday through Sunday, neatly divided, easy to manage, comfortable, familiar, and completely reasonable at home. But at a 2026 checkpoint, that same organizer is one of the fastest ways to get pulled aside, because TSA officers are not looking at your routine, they are looking at unidentified substances, loose pills sitting in small plastic compartments with no label, no name, no dosage, and no way to confirm what they actually are. That ambiguity alone is enough to trigger a manual search. And once that search begins, your bag gets opened in front of everyone in line. Your other belongings get handled and repacked, and the minutes you needed to reach your gate quietly disappear. The fix is simple, but most travelers never think of it until it is already too late. Keep every medication in its original prescription bottle, with your name, the drug name, and the dosage printed clearly on the label. If you need the convenience of a weekly organizer for your daily routine, carry the original bottles alongside it as backup proof, and bring a printed medication list matching each pill to its purpose. Because in 2026, security does not reward good intentions or years of experience flying, it rewards documentation. And if your bottle does not match the name on your ID exactly, expect a conversation that takes far longer than the actual flight delay you were trying to avoid. This becomes even more complicated for travelers managing several prescriptions at once. Blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication, something for sleep. Each one needs its own verifiable container. Not one mixed collection that looks convenient but reads as suspicious the moment it hits the scanner. And if you are traveling internationally, some countries require a doctor's note for certain medications, regardless of how well labeled the bottle is. So, before you fly, call your pharmacy, ask for a printed summary of everything you are carrying, and keep that summary folded inside your bag next to the bottles themselves, because that single piece of paper can turn a 10-minute delay into a 30-second glance. Number 2. Portable power stations over airline watt-hour limits. Portable power stations have become the new must-have travel item. Camping trips, road trips, backup power during outages, powering laptops on long layovers. And now, more travelers are tossing them directly into their carry-on bags without ever checking the fine print. Most airlines cap these devices at 100 watt hours without special approval, and some allow up to 160 watt hours only with permission arranged in advance. Anything beyond that is treated the exact same way as a fire hazard, and it gets confiscated on the spot, no exceptions, no matter how expensive it was. The real problem is that most power stations do not advertise watt hours the way a phone battery does. They show output in amps, they display vague marketing numbers, they highlight capacity in ways that sound impressive, but tell you nothing about the actual limit that matters at security. If you cannot find the watt-hour rating printed clearly somewhere on the device itself, assume the worst, because TSA absolutely will. Before your next trip, check the specification sheet, calculate the watt hours if the manufacturer only gives you amp hours and voltage, and if the number is close to the limit, leave the device at home entirely, because a power station that keeps your devices charged on a weekend camping trip is not worth losing your entire bag to a search at the airport. And there is another layer to this that catches people completely by surprise. Some airlines require these devices to be carried in the cabin only, never in checked baggage, meaning even if the watt-hour rating is within the legal limit, packing it in your checked suitcase can still get it pulled and set aside before your bag ever reaches the plane. The safest habit is checking your specific airline's policy the week before you travel, not assuming that whatever worked on your last flight will automatically work again, because policies around battery capacity have been updated more than once in the last 2 years alone, and the traveler who checks ahead of time is always the one who walks through security without a second glance. Number 3. Loose lithium batteries. A handful of spare AA batteries, an extra battery pack for your camera, a couple of backup cells tossed loosely into a side pocket. It feels completely harmless, something you barely think about while packing, but loose lithium batteries are actually one of the most common causes of in-flight fire incidents recorded every single year. When battery terminals touch metal, keys, coins, or other batteries, heat builds up quickly and quietly. And inside a pressurized cabin at cruising altitude, that heat has nowhere safe to go. That is exactly why in 2026, loose batteries without any protection are treated as an immediate risk rather than a minor inconvenience. Every spare battery now needs to stay in its original retail packaging, or inside a dedicated battery case, or with the terminals fully covered using tape. If TSA sees batteries rolling freely at the bottom of your bag, mixed in with coins and keys, they will not stop to debate the odds of anything actually happening. They will simply remove the batteries and move on to the next traveler in line. And once removed, they are gone for good. No refund, no return. So before your next trip, take 5 minutes, tape those terminals, or slide each battery into a proper protective case, because 5 minutes of preparation at home is far easier than explaining yourself to a security line full of people watching you get stopped. And this rule catches a specific group of travelers more than anyone else. People carrying medical devices that run on standard batteries, hearing aids, glucose monitors, small fans for temperature regulation. The devices themselves are almost always fine, but the loose spare batteries sitting next to them in the same pouch are what gets flagged. So if you rely on a device like this every day, pack the spares in their own small container, separate from everything else, clearly protected. Because the goal is never to hide what you are carrying, the goal is to make it instantly obvious that nothing in your bag can accidentally spark against something else. Number 4. Smart bags with non-removable lithium batteries. Smart luggage looked like the future when it first hit the market. Built-in charging ports, GPS tracking, digital locks, all powered by an internal lithium battery tucked neatly into the frame. But here's the part most travelers never checked before buying one. If that battery cannot be physically removed from the bag itself becomes a restricted item under current airline rules. Airlines require that lithium batteries inside smart luggage be removable and carried separately in the cabin, because if something goes wrong mid-flight, crew members need immediate access to that battery, not a bag they have to disassemble at 35,000 feet. If your smart bag was built without a removable battery, it may be denied at the gate entirely. And this is where the trap really hurts. Not delayed, denied, meaning you either abandon the bag right there at the counter, or you miss your flight trying to solve the problem on the spot with no tools and no time. Before you invest in smart luggage, or before you pack the one you already own for your next trip, confirm the battery slides out easily with a simple mechanism, because a feature that seemed like a convenient upgrade when you bought it can quietly become the exact reason your trip falls apart before it even begins. And the frustrating part is that many of these bags were purchased years ago, back when the rules around them were looser and less consistently enforced at every gate. Travelers who bought their smart luggage early are often the ones most surprised now, because nothing about the bag has changed, only the enforcement around it has. So before your next trip, pull out the manual or look up your exact model online. Confirm in writing whether the battery is removable. And if there is any doubt at all, travel with a backup bag for that one trip rather than finding out the hard way at the check-in counter with a line building up behind you. Number 5. Numbers with missing, damaged, or conflicting labels. This one is not really about what the item is, it is about whether TSA can actually verify it in a few seconds. Sunscreen, lotion, contact solution, hand sanitizer, any of these can travel through security without a single issue, as long as the label matches the contents clearly and legibly. But the moment a label is missing, peeling off, water damaged from a previous trip, or written in a way that conflicts with what is actually inside the container, that item becomes unverifiable in the eyes of security, and unverifiable almost always means confiscated. This catches frequent travelers especially hard because they reuse the same travel size bottles for months at a time, refilling them from larger containers at home again and again. And over time, the original label fades, smudges, or disappears completely from repeated handling. Once that happens, security has no fast way to confirm what they are actually looking at. And rather than take the risk of letting something unidentified through the checkpoint, they remove it and move on. The solution is genuinely simple. Relabel anything that looks worn before you travel. Keep original packaging whenever possible, instead of transferring everything into unmarked containers. And never assume that, because you personally know exactly what is inside, the officer scanning your bag for 3 seconds will know it too. This also applies to gifts, something a family member handed you sealed and ready to pack. a small jar or tube with foreign text on the label that neither you nor the officer scanning it can immediately read. If the label cannot be quickly understood, it gets treated exactly the same as no label at all. So if you are traveling with a gift like this, ask whoever gave it to you for the original packaging or a receipt. And if neither is available, consider placing it in checked luggage instead, where the same level of scrutiny simply does not apply in the same way. Number 6. Tactical self-defense keychains and kubotans. These items are marketed everywhere as everyday carry essentials. Small, discreet, designed to fit quietly on a keyring next to your car keys, and completely legal to own in most places across the country. But legal to own does not mean legal to carry through airport security. Kubotans, spiked keychain tools, and similar self-defense accessories are classified as potential weapons the moment they reach a checkpoint, regardless of your intent, regardless of how many times you have carried the exact same one through security before without a single issue. Enforcement in 2026 has tightened significantly compared to just a few years ago, and officers are specifically trained to flag these items on site during the initial bag scan. The outcome is rarely a simple confiscation either. In some cases, travelers face additional questioning that pulls them out of line entirely. And in certain states, carrying a restricted self-defense item into a secured area can carry legal consequences that go well beyond just losing the item itself. If personal safety tools are part of your daily routine at home, remove them from your bag entirely before your trip, and only pack them in checked luggage if your airline and your destination specifically allow it, because assuming it will be fine one more time is exactly how people end up detained and questioned at the gate. And this is not limited to obvious tactical items either. Decorative keychains that look sharp, novelty tools shaped like weapons, even certain heavy metal keychains with pointed edges have been flagged under the same broad category. If you are ever unsure whether something on your keyring might qualify, the safest choice is removing it from your travel bag entirely and leaving it at home, because the small inconvenience of not having it on your trip is nothing compared to the hours lost explaining yourself to security personnel who are simply following the same strict standard applied to everyone else that day. Number 7. Aerosols over 100 milliliters. Dry shampoo, sunscreen spray, deodorant, hairspray. These are everyday products that millions of people pack without a second thought, but the container size is where most travelers quietly slip up every single time. Aerosols follow the same 100 milliliter limit as liquids, and enforcement of that rule has become far less forgiving in 2026 than it used to be. Advanced scanning technology at major checkpoints now identifies aerosol contents automatically, meaning officers no longer need to guess, estimate, or give you the benefit of the doubt. If the container reads anything above the limit printed right there on the label, it does not matter if it is half empty. It does not matter if you only need a small amount for a short trip. The full container size printed on the outside is what gets scanned and flagged, and that single number decides whether it travels with you or gets thrown into the bin beside the conveyor belt. The safest approach is buying dedicated, travel-size versions of the products you already use at home, checking the label carefully before you pack, not after you are already standing in the security line with people waiting behind you. Because discovering the size limit at that exact moment is the worst possible time to find out, And duty-free purchases fall into this same trap more often than people expect. A large aerosol bought right at the airport after security, sealed in its official bag with a receipt attached, feels completely safe. But if you have a connecting flight and need to pass through a second security checkpoint, that same sealed item can still be pulled and confiscated without exception. The seal and the receipt prove where you bought it. They do not change the size printed on the can. So, if your trip involves a layover with a second screening, treat every duty-free aerosol the same way you would treat one packed from home, checking the printed volume before it ever goes near your carry-on bag. Number 8. Unlabeled refillable travel bottles. This is the item almost every experienced traveler still gets wrong. Because on the surface, it feels like the smart move, the responsible move even, refillable silicone bottles, reusable travel containers, filled at home with your favorite lotion or shampoo, saving space, saving money, staying comfortably under the size limit, all completely reasonable on paper, except for one detail travelers consistently forget in the moment. An unlabeled bottle is an unidentified substance. As far as security is concerned, no matter how small it is, no matter how ordinary the contents actually are, security cannot confirm what is inside a plain, unmarked bottle just by glancing at it for a few seconds. And in 2026, that uncertainty alone is enough to trigger extra screening, sometimes a full bag search that unpacks everything you own, sometimes a conversation that eats directly into the time you needed to reach your gate before boarding closes. The fix costs almost nothing. A small piece of tape and a permanent marker. Label every refillable bottle clearly, with exactly what is inside before you leave home, not while you are already waiting in line with your shoes half off, because the travelers who get stopped for this are rarely doing anything wrong. They are simply unprepared for a system in 2026 that no longer gives anyone the benefit of the doubt. And there is one more detail worth remembering here. Clear bottles are actually more likely to raise questions than opaque ones, because a clear container with an unidentified liquid draws the eye immediately during the scan, while a labeled, opaque bottle passes through without a second thought. So if you are someone who travels often and refills the same set of bottles trip after trip, build a 5-minute habit before every single departure, check every label, confirm every seal, and treat that quick check the same way you already treat checking your boarding pass or your passport, because it belongs in that same category now, not as an afterthought. 8 items, all different from each other, all enforced the exact same way. Medications without proof, power stations over the limit, loose batteries rolling free, smart bags with a battery that will not come out, labels that no longer match what is inside, self-defense keychains that feel harmless until they are flagged, aerosols past the limit printed on the can, and refillable bottles with nothing written on them at all. None of these rules exist to punish careful travelers who are simply trying to get from one place to another. They exist because the system in 2026 can no longer rely on guesswork, context, or a friendly conversation with an officer having a good day. And once you actually understand that, packing stops feeling like a guessing game and starts feeling like real preparation. The travelers who breeze through security without a single delay are not lucky. They are not special. They simply checked every item on this list before they ever left the house, calmly, methodically, one bag at a time, long before their alarm even went off on travel day. If this video helped you catch even one thing you would have packed by mistake, that is exactly why this channel exists in the first place. Subscribe to Fly Smart After 70 for more real, practical airport updates before your next trip, and take a moment to share this with someone who is flying soon. A parent, a friend, anyone who has not seen a video like this yet, because the few minutes it takes to watch this could genuinely save them from losing something they cannot easily replace at the checkpoint, and from standing in a line wondering exactly where everything went wrong.